Welcome to the first session of the RecruitGPT course on ChatGPT in recruiting and sourcing. As is our tradition, we're having our first session today in an open format. Today we'll discuss using ChatGPT in the very first stages of a recruiter's work, specifically developing and analyzing job postings using ChatGPT, and we'll see how it all works. I'll be sharing my screen where I have ChatGPT running and show you how it all works, that is, how it processes queries. So, why do recruiters and sourcers need to learn about ChatGPT? The thing is, you'll be able to accomplish much more with it because you can delegate part of your work to this, let's call it artificial intelligence. You won't need to search for a lot of information that we usually look up on Google because it knows everything. We'll see that too. And you'll be able to do everything faster, better, and more efficiently, and you'll be able to use all possible tools for generating images. This means your job posting illustrations will be much more extensive. This course has a website. It looks like this. And if we haven't met before, let's get acquainted. My name is Mike Pritula. Here are the companies I've worked for since 2005. So I've been in this field for 18 years now. Speaking about today's course topic, this course is for sourcers and recruiters, and I want to mention that my first job was related to recruiting. I was a recruiter and trainer, hiring and training employees, then I focused more on recruiting, and then I went on to lead recruiting teams and build both teams and processes in the field of recruiting. In your work, I recommend relying on and tracking global best practices. We'll skip this because we don't have a chat function in Telegram yet, and I'll tell you about the homework. We have homework for each course. Now we're talking about the ChatGPT course for recruiters and sourcers. But we have a ChatGPT course for HR, and I see it has already finished. And I see how students in this course improve their skills and what great results they achieve. They're already starting to use it in their work, and it really helps a lot. It's like, I call it an exoskeleton. It's like a suit you put on that makes you feel cooler, stronger, and so on. In this course, we'll also have homework assignments to help you practice all of this. And by completing the homework, you'll be able to earn our diploma. We issue the diploma online on a special platform. It's very convenient. The course itself consists of 10 sessions where we cover all the details of working with ChatGPT. Today, we'll talk about how to use it at the very beginning. That is, for defining candidate requirements, creating attractive job postings using ChatGPT, for analyzing effectiveness, improving job postings based on feedback, candidates, and comparing job postings with competitors. That's our plan for today. Let's get started. So, I'll start with some basic rules for working with artificial intelligence in case someone doesn't have much experience and is just starting to use it. First, the same query typed by you personally. ChatGPT can give completely different answers. So there's an element of randomness, so to speak. This is normal. So don't expect that when you type a query, you'll see exactly the same answer as shown here in the screenshots. If you don't like an answer, you can always ask it to rephrase, and sometimes it can go from a completely unsuitable answer to a very sensible one. So you look at something that's not quite right, click, and it gives you a more suitable option. Then, when you interact with ChatGPT directly on their website, there are tabs, like in a browser, but not on the left here. And within one tab, until you close it, everything you've written or will write is remembered, and the responses depend on the context of the conversation. In other words, your past questions will influence future answers. If you want to change the topic drastically or, for example, move on to another job opening, it's worth considering opening a new tab, because otherwise it could be slightly influenced by your previous conversation, which may have nothing to do with your next query. And ChatGPT, unlike Google, which we're used to working with when we need help or information, it can accept feedback, understand commands, take criticism. In other words, you can have a dialogue with it. And the best homework I've seen from my students is where they guided ChatGPT, giving feedback or asking it to remove something, add something, rephrase something, and so on. In other words, the more you respond to what you're given, the better answers you get. So don't avoid it or be afraid of it. It's very convenient. Next, what's the advantage of using ChatGPT in general, not just for today's topic, but overall for recruiters and sourcers? First of all, as recruiters and sourcers, you work with a lot of text, job descriptions, emails to candidates, offer letters, various correspondence, and so on. And all these texts need to be written manually, or you need to search for templates. ChatGPT writes them for you much faster, with higher quality, better, or improves what you already have. Next, in our sourcing class, we will look at how ChatGPT can even improve search queries, add synonyms, write proper syntax, and so on. It can also recommend where best to post a particular job opening. We will have an example of this today, especially when you are in a new field, dealing with a new type of job opening, or maybe a new country, and you do not know where best to post it. ChatGPT can help you with this. And ChatGPT also gives you a competitive advantage because when you use it, you improve your texts, your creative content, any messages, so your work looks more interesting than that of competitors who might just copy boring job descriptions and so on. So in this way, you are also staying ahead of the competition. These are the main points. There are various studies on the application of artificial intelligence. I have seen figures suggesting that somewhere between 30 and 70% of time is saved when we use ChatGPT in solving various tasks. It depends on the profession and what you do, but I think it is a significant acceleration. I mean, imagine being able to fill positions at least 30% faster. Plus, this work of writing all these texts, laboring over them, searching for information. This can also be tedious and uninteresting for some people who do not like working with texts or do not have copywriting skills. Here, ChatGPT solves all of this for you. And you can focus on what you love most. For example, on sourcing candidates, contacting them, or conducting interviews. So you are simply freeing up time from things you do not really enjoy. So what we can do is look at examples using ChatGPT in recruiting and sourcing. The first is defining candidate requirements. We will have examples here, and they will be broken down in more detail on the following slides, and I will be demonstrating in parallel. So let us switch to screen sharing mode. And the first thing you can ask, for example, if you have a job opening like a Java developer or any other position, and your manager has not filled out a complete recruitment request for you, find me a candidate like this. And you might be expected to help compile the requirements for this candidate. Maybe the manager doesn't really know. What does a recruiter or sourcer typically do? You have to search for this job opening. And usually it's several job openings because one website or one company might not be enough. You sit there sifting through information, gathering data, and so on. Instead of that, you can simply ask ChatGPT. So I've formatted all the queries here in a way that you can simply copy. So basically in this course, all queries will be copyable. That means you copy and paste them into your ChatGPT chat. And let's change it up for variety's sake. I'll input different examples into ChatGPT than those in the presentation, just to have another example. For example, a job opening. Pharmacist, pharmacy sales associate. I have no idea what it will write. And it generates requirements that you might spend several minutes, and often even longer, searching for these job openings, analyzing requirements and writing them out in your job posting. ChatGPT will generate this for you immediately. A few points to note. Look, you see, it hasn't finished writing. There's a button, it wasn't there before, but now there's a button to continue generating the response. We click it and it continues generating. Also, the paid subscription of ChatGPT has two versions, version 3.5 and version 4. I'm using version 3.5 in today's presentation because it's faster, but here I used version 4 because it provides higher quality answers. So basically you can expect slightly better answers than those you'll see in today's presentation. So as you can see, it wrote computer skills. Legislation. We can say, now I'll formulate them in such a way that it's easy to add the job posting text. And then you can send this to the manager, the hiring manager, and say, here's a job opening. Yes, we found these skills, for example. Is it correct? Should something be edited and added? And it will be much easier for managers to edit, add, or remove something than to write from scratch. So that's how the work is made easier for the manager. Second example. You might, for example, have some requirements that the manager sent, but a manager can't always adequately perceive reality and assess the feasibility of requirements. But ChatGPT has been trained on a huge amount of data, including job posting texts, so it can compare your job posting text with some topic it has seen during training and tell how adequate it is. So, two queries. Let's do the first one. How adequate are these requirements for the job opening? And we'll find a job opening. For example, I'll take a recruiter's website and some job opening to assess the adequacy, I don't know, something fresh. Well, for example, a C++ programmer and the requirements. So I paste the query here, then copy the job title, C++ programmer, and then the requirements. Let's copy. So requirements, personal qualities. By the way, they're written very sparingly. It might even be interesting to look at. The requirements you presented are more appropriate for a programmer position than for a pharmacist salesperson. Here, by the way, is what I was telling you about. You see, I continued communicating within the same tab, and there was a conversation about the pharmacist salesperson. So this surprised it a little. So to avoid this, it's better to open a new chat and repeat the query. Let's do it. I think this is a very boring job posting. Yeah, something like that. Well, this is more interesting. And I'll copy it again, but in a new window so it doesn't remember about the pharmacist salesperson. So I copy the job title for the position, and then I copy the requirements. The requirements are listed here as a plus, so I paste them and hit enter. These requirements seem quite adequate for the work experience. But it continues to analyze. And what's also interesting is that we can ask it to rate the difficulty of filling positions with such requirements on a 10-point scale. By the way, here it rated it as 8 or 9 points for me. Let's compare. No, 8 points. So it's quite normal. It thinks the requirements are adequate. Well, in principle, that's probably what we expect from most job postings. Here it might be, if some are really completely inadequate. By the way, we can look at what we had before, which was a PHP developer, senior plus backend PHP developer, and now we're trying to find another position, mid-level, full stack. There was some back-end position here. There you have it. Now evaluate the reasonableness of these requirements and the difficulty level for a similar position. Let's see what it writes for us this time. Reasonably adequate. Let's continue. We're waiting for the complexity assessment. Yeah, because it's senior or plus, that's why it rates it as adequate and gives it 6 to 7 points, but it seems to think that's normal. Okay. Next, we can write out detailed requirements for this position. This is something else it can do. Write out the requirements for the job opening more appropriately. For example, we have a job opening that, isn't very well structured, and we can ask to write it out a bit better. So I'll copy this. Let's do it like this and like this. Required skills. We offer. Yes. Here, it rewrote it in more detail. And what else can be said? Check the job requirements and compare them with similar positions in the industry. See if there are any gaps in the requirements. Check the requirements for this position. I'll copy it again so that the last part matches the standard requirements. However, for a full assessment, let's compare it with generally accepted requirements. And here it compares with the generally accepted requirements. There are no obvious gaps or deviations. It's a good direction. So, let's continue. Well, yes, it adds a disclaimer that the company's requirements might differ. So this job posting is fine. Well, I guess if there was a job posting that wasn't quite reasonable, unfortunately, there's no such thing as, a button like find an unreasonable job posting. It would be interesting to have a very detailed one. Oh well. Anyway, let's not take another position so as not to confuse it too much. Next, we can ask it to analyze the job posting and suggest what other skills to add to the requirements. Let's take a new job opening. Job opening. Let's go for something other than a developer like a marketer. Let's take this one. This is the noise of these developers. For developers, it's a digital marketing manager, but that's okay. I'll copy everything here. Copy and specify what requirements to add to this job posting. Let's see. Based on the provided job posting, we can consider the following skills that might be useful. SEO optimization, web analytics. Yes, so it analyzed the existing requirements and added them together. You could say, now compile the requirements from the job posting and those you've added, update the job text and divide the requirements into mandatory and would be an advantage. That's how it's usually done in job postings. Let's see what it comes up with. By the way, it switches between languages in a very interesting way differently. They perceive in which language to give it an answer. You can clearly write to it to give you an answer in Ukrainian English or any other language, and it's no problem. It tries to adapt to the language you're using in your question. For example, if you have English text copied in your question like here, it might start answering in English. You can say, now answer me in this language. So it writes mandatory skills and what would be an advantage. It's excellent. So it divided, you see, it supplemented the requirements with what it thought necessary as it was asked, and divided them into mandatory and would be an advantage. And then it just took the rest of the job posting text that was there and left it as it was. What's next? Next, we can do something very interesting. That was about working with the job posting text, requirements, comparisons, analysis, and so on. Next, I think for recruiters and sourcers, one of the most interesting parts is creating attractive job postings. We'll have several examples. Here they are gathered on one slide and then just an example. So, the first thing you can do is ask to rewrite any job posting text you have. You probably have some job posting texts, and you can simply edit them and ask to rewrite them in more attractive language. Well, here's an example. By the way, it's written quite well. It looks like this. There's a company description, what the job entails, what we expect, and what we offer. Nevertheless, I'll copy it anyway and we'll see what it suggests. So, we've taken this part, and then our websites, let's copy the remaining part. Join the team, we're proud, we've achieved, we invite. Your tasks will include, we expect the following from you. Let's click continue. The text is long since it can't fully respond. Well, we offer the following, and then yes, a call to action. That's not all. We can do this in a role description format to make it more engaging. Again, I'm using GPT 3.5 for demonstration purposes, and if we use 4.0, it'll be even more interesting. Role description, your responsibilities, candidate requirements, so it can improve. What else can we do? Sometimes they write job listings in this format. They look fun, interesting. This can be done by asking it to rewrite the text. I call this the clickbait format. Clickbait, is when they create text that everyone wants to click on, like this. Explosive sales. Join us, Master PPC, dominate contextual advertising. Don't miss this hot opportunity. But it made a short text. We can ask it to describe the text in more detail, as it was in the original, but keep the clickbait format. Here, let's try to get it. Well, yeah. Responsibilities, requirements, what we offer you, it basically worked out. Now we can even ask to rewrite it in youth slang. If you have a job opening for students or for the informal market, in ASAP mode, 4 brands, sales have doubled, your tasks, your skills, what we're leveling up for you, and a chance to bring your vibe. Without wasting time, it's a more detailed and more high-flown version. Next, we can turn this text into a post for Facebook. For example, We don't plan to publish the entire job listing, but we want to take a short text and provide a link to the full vacancy for detailed information. By the way, it's writing a long text right now. I won't continue. I'll rephrase it. So it's normal that in my example here, it made a short real text, but here it's writing a long one. I'll say we need to make this text. The text should be shorter, as there will be a link to the job posting with detailed information. Make the text as appealing as possible. That is, something to get a person interested in clicking the link. Well, yes. This is more detailed. Makes sense, plus there will be a link to the job posting, plus maybe some image. This is more interesting. What else? We can give any job listing text and ask what can be improved. Let's take another job listing so we don't confuse different texts. Maybe a less interesting one that's superficially formatted, perhaps. I will try to open different job listings and look for something. Well, here's one that's not super detailed, by the way, also not super detailed. Let's name the first one. We copy the job title and copy the description. Done. And for a change, let me include the GPT version. It will take longer to respond, you will see that, but the answer should be more interesting. It is more creative, more thorough, has more ideas, not necessarily higher quality. You see, the speed is probably 3 or 4 times slower than the previous version, but the depth of analysis is greater. A more detailed company description, clear description of responsibilities. It criticizes, saying that the key responsibilities listed in your ad are somewhat generic. Try to give a more specific idea of what a WordPress developer will be doing on a daily basis. And this is cool because you see, if your job listing text isn't very high quality, the responses will be low, there will be few of them. With these improvements, there might be more conversions, improving the offer. What we could add in the what we offer section. Unfortunately for the webinar, the GPT chat writes very slowly, so we cannot test all questions. That is why I am using version 3.5. It is less creative, but we can compare them just for interest to understand the difference. Now let us try 3.5. Add a brief company introduction, specify the required level of experience, clarify responsibilities and tasks, detail the required knowledge and skills, and specify the benefits. See? So the answer is quite different, more superficial. Next, we can ask it to create 3 versions of the job posting text, taking into account the recommendations. Well, for speed, I'll ask here that it doesn't write in version 4.0. There you go. And it's generating the versions. Why do we need multiple versions? First, we can read them ourselves and choose which text is more interesting, not relying on just one version. Second, we can have employees or candidates read them to choose the most suitable version. And third, we can test different versions of the text and see which ones attract more attention. Also, if we have a job posting that's been up for a long time, it might be a good idea to update the text so that it, looks different, so it doesn't cause that blind spot effect. When a person sees the same job posting hanging there for a long time, it becomes uninteresting to them. Next, we can ask it to suggest 10 original headlines for this job posting. For example, we can use them as job titles. Here you go. We can use this in email subject lines. We can use it on Facebook where we post. Let's see what it suggests. Well, there you have it. Or we can ask for 10 job titles for publication on Shop. It just suggested the standard ones. We can ask which title will have the maximum conversion rate or the maximum number of responses. Formulated. Now formulate one final version taking into account their advice so we don't have to think, but it does it itself. So it suggests a name and has written the job posting text. Okay, what else? We can ask how we can supplement the job posting with something to make it better received. In today's world, where there's high competition among companies for candidates, when many job postings look similar and monotonous, companies are starting to make job postings a bit more detailed, creating whole landing pages for vacancies. They even use landing page builders for this and supplement the job posting with videos, pictures, links, and so on. So we can ask ChatGPT for ideas on how to supplement this job posting to make it more interesting. And it will write, taking into account the specifics of the job, what this could be. And then we can take and post it. Interesting. For example, a sample of code or a technical solution that was developed, project portfolio, infographics about job benefits and project demonstrations, recruiting video. This could be the format. So this would enhance the job posting. Next, we can analyze the effectiveness of the job posting. Here are a few ideas. Let's take a look. First, we can evaluate the effectiveness of the job posting in terms of attracting candidates. I'll also start a new chat and take another new job posting. I don't want to use curator again. Let's not use developers, but let's take some new job postings. Okay, I'll close everything, both the job title and the job description text. By the way, interesting, such a detailed text. Evaluate the effectiveness of job postings in terms of inclusion potential. Let's take a look. Evaluation of the job posting's effectiveness. Unique platform, social significance, growth opportunity, flexible payment schedule. And then it suggests that the following things are important for a more accurate assessment, and it lists them. But the job posting, yes, it's not bad. I do agree that we found an interesting one. Next, we can ask, considering the job posting text, on which resources it suggests posting it. By the way, I wonder if the country is mentioned somewhere here or not specified, because for the job posting I gave it earlier, it was specified that it was for Ukraine. That's why it suggested Ginny, which was interesting. Let's see how it does this time. Recruiting platforms, career sites, social media, outdoor advertising. This part, for example, was interesting. I want to show again, this is, for example, ChatGPT 4. What resources do you recommend? Let's post a different job listing. So we'll take another job posting. Job posting. I'll post this job in Ukraine, and not in Poland, by the way, but in Ukraine. For example, let's imagine this is a job posting in Poland. Okay, let's not talk about the IT recruiter. Why not? We take the job title, and the description. Copied. Now let's see what it recommends to us. See, as I said, it might think you want to communicate in a different language. So the question was in one language, and the job text in another, and it switched to English. By the way, here's really about Golden Line. It's like a Polish version of LinkedIn, their equivalent for job searches. But just join IT, Bulldog Job, LinkedIn, Infopraka. Well, that's cool. So it gives great options. We can compare it, for example, with some IT job posting, this job posting, to check if it's not just that it knows, a small set of sites and offers them to us everywhere. Now we'll compare. You see here, one language dominated both the job posting and the message text, so it switched to that language, gold, through the channels I mentioned, yes. So far it matches. Will there be just join it? Okay, this matches too. Okay, something new or not, we had RecruitGPT, right? Well, I guess that makes sense. Maybe because there was an IT recruiter there, so it's suggesting platforms for both the first and second job postings. Let's ask it if there are specific job platforms in Poland. Yes, I see job search. Let's see. Here are a few of them. We've already seen these. We'll ask if there are any others besides the ones mentioned, like this. So that it doesn't repeat what it has already said, let's ask it to suggest something else. Let's look at something new. I haven't even heard of this program. Praca.pl? Well, yes. Website. A portal for programmers. It's not even just a website. IT, I know, just join IT. It's like a super popular site for IT, startup job, cross-web. Well, overall it's pretty good, suggesting platforms for posting job vacancies. Don't forget to ask about additional platforms, for example, if you want to see even more options. This is a universal tip because ChatGPT always answers quite concisely, but you can make it give even more detailed information just by asking a simple question. Next, for example, we have some statistics after publishing a job posting, and we want to understand why it's not closed and how we can improve the job posting. Let's take the IT recruiter job posting after publishing this vacancy. By the way, yes. You see, sometimes when you copy text, it's copied without spaces. But what's cool is that ChatGPT can recognize and process this. So it's like analyzing now. I wrote to it. So you can just copy your statistics and ask for advice on what to do. In general, this is a universal approach where you can describe any current situation for your job posting. For example, say, I have this job vacancy. Here's its text. Here are the salary ranges. Candidates want more. What should I do? Help me convince the manager to pay more, and so on and so forth. So ChatGPT handles all these aspects quite well too, acting as an analyst, and will then write recommendations. What else? We can ask for the market salary for this position. The only thing is, it will say that it's updated as of September 2021. As far as I know, it's being updated now, and version 5 should be coming out, so I think this disclaimer will soon be removed. Plus, there's a version with internet search, but the search doesn't work well. That's why I'm not even going to show it yet. Yes, let's stop here and start another chat so it doesn't get confused, and we'll give it some job posting text that we want information about. By the way, let's see, we have 52,800 as a benchmark, and we'll just copy this job posting again. The only thing that's unclear from the job posting is that it's in Ukraine, so I'll write what the market salary for this position is in Ukraine. Obviously, it would be different in other countries. He's about to write that. I don't know, I haven't been updated in a while. Nevertheless, let's see what he comes up with. In my example here, he didn't provide the job posting, or more precisely, the salary for the positions. As of the last update, blah, 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 how much was it? You have 52,500, and here we have 252,800. That is... Although, actually, it's probably still more than 2, so he took a very wide range. We can do it this way and test it at the same time. If you have, as I mentioned before, the paid version of ChatGPT, you have access to a feature called Browsing with Bing, which is essentially internet search. So let's try to do the same thing and see how it works with internet search. See, here it's trying to find information on the internet. Here it writes the average salary for PHP developer in Ukraine is 223. It's visiting some website, reading something, and let's see, now it's 50,000 hryvnias. Well, if you convert that to dollars, it's about 1,500. I wonder what the source is. Well, he took the average salary in Ukraine for a PHP developer from Work.ua. Well, yes, apparently this is the current relevant salary. So basically the same answer as before, if converted to dollars. Next, we can improve the job posting based on candidate feedback. But first, we need to get candidate feedback. So we can ask ChatGPT to develop a questionnaire for candidates to collect feedback. And this is useful when we have, for example, a complex job posting and something in it isn't quite right, or it's not very attractive. And we ask the candidates we have to fill out a short questionnaire to evaluate it. And then using their answers, we can give ChatGPT their responses and ask how we can improve. So there are examples of questions here. But to input them, we need specific candidate feedback. So I won't be able to show you the feedback. What else can we ask for? To compare with competitors. So we can take one of our job postings, a competitor's job posting, and ask to compare which one is better and what could be changed. Let's try to do that. We'll also use the Smart Model 4.0. Let's take some other job posting, but one that's popular. So let's take an Android developer position for 2 companies. We could even try typing the word la and find 2 different companies. Here's Pulse and Push H and Drive. Okay, good. All right, let's go 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll compare. For example, this is our job posting, and these are our competitors. And I'll write the instructions. You'll need to compare our job posting with similar job postings from our competitors. Our company, so it doesn't get confused, our company where we have it written chaos, competitors, and we're like this. I'll just indicate in the job posting text that it's some company like Drive, and now the job posting text, and let's go. Title, copied. The only thing is that it doesn't allow sending a very long message for competitors' job postings. I'll send it to you separately. So we have to break it up, but sometimes it doesn't quite understand that we need to wait. Yes, now it understands that it will be waiting. Good job. So now we'll copy Pulse. Basically, it's not super long, so we can try to copy it, and we'll see what comes of it. I just copied it. Interestingly, I didn't turn off web browsing here, so it still went online. I think that's the wrong approach. So now we'll try to ask it to do this, but without the internet. So I'll copy my text here again, and this one here, so that it doesn't distort what we need. So here it writes, well done. Here are the competitors. Let's do it this way. Let's compare. Let's do it, yes. Mandatory requirements. Well, apparently it's going to analyze each section. It will. Let me write. Now write your conclusions regarding the comparison. I just don't want it to spend a long time writing things that we can look at ourselves. Now this is more interesting. So the analysis is in progress. That means he'll take it. And what's most interesting is that we can say the following about how to make our job posting more appealing to candidates than our competitors. And this is what we can use to improve our job posting right away. He's not basing it on general concepts anymore. He has already seen what our competitors are writing, and consequently, he's giving us some ideas about understanding our competitors. Well, that's how it is. I won't wait any longer to avoid wasting time. Next, we can evaluate how competitive our job posting is on a 10-point scale compared to our competitors. So he now sees all these 4 job postings as well, 7 out of 10. And then he writes, we can ask about what industry trends are relevant for these job postings and what to include to stand out from the competition. He can do this as well. That is, to help us improve our position considering what's currently happening in this field, remote work. By the way, this was also a remote job. Digital transformation. Let's see if it happens or not. No, learning and development is a slightly different answer. And then we can ask him to revise the job posting text taking into account these trends and all the recommendations. We've seen how this is done, so I won't do it here. Now about the homework. For those taking the course, you'll need to use 3 commands from this lesson. Out of all that we covered today, there were probably about 20 of them, maybe more. And send screenshots of how you use them, along with a brief summary of your conclusions, what you gained from it, and how it was useful to you. This concludes our first lesson. Next, we'll discuss creating and optimizing a recruiter's profile on social media, why this is important. We'll talk about how it affects job closure rates, candidate responses, and negotiations with candidates. And then we'll discuss using ChatGPT for resume analysis. That is, we'll look at how to analyze resumes, what conclusions can be drawn from them, and how to make decisions. There will be a separate session on using sourcing techniques, forming search queries, finding platforms, and so on, searching for synonyms and keywords, for communicating with candidates, that is, drafting all types of correspondence, emails, and so on. We'll talk about organizing workflow task management, conducting interviews, and employer brand marketing. And here we'll discuss tools for creating images using different platforms such as Midjourney, Yes, Bing, and so on. Then we'll talk about integration with recruiting tools, measuring success, and defining KPIs in recruiting. That's our plan going forward. That's all for today. We'll see those of you in our course in a week. I invite everyone else to join this group and take the training to master ChatGPT because more and more people are starting to use GPT in their profession. It's becoming a standard tool. Just like the computer once appeared in all professions and sped up work, there were concerns that computers would replace people. It did replace some people, of course, but for the most part, it helped, made work easier, and sped things up. The same goes for ChatGPT and artificial intelligence. Overall, this is a tool that helps speed up and simplify work, but doesn't replace humans. Well, it might replace some people, but definitely not HR professionals or recruiters, so there's no need to worry. But it's necessary to study it to improve your work. That's all. Thank you for your attention. See you soon. Bye bye.